let's stay with the sport. Women's sport leads the sport frontline this year, especially in South Africa, where the Netball World Cup and upcoming Women's World Cup will be taking place. In a groundbreaking move, the Bulls franchise will award 35 women professional rugby contracts in the course of the next few days. For this conversation, I'm joined by high-performance women's rugby manager at the Bulls, Thando Manana. He is joining us here in studio. But Thando, thank you so much for your time. It's great to have you here. So big congratulations to the Bulls for awarding these professional contracts to these 35 women. I have to ask you though, why do you think it is that it's taken us as South Africa so long to get to this point?
I think the stop and start has been happening within especially women's rugby teams across the country. I mean, if you remember later in 2014, there was no women's rugby partaking at international level, and then they came back. And in coming back, they did extremely well to win the African Cup and then qualify for the World Cup. But I think what has been happening is that the IPL, which is the Inter-Provincial League, has been happening at provincial level, but on an amateur base. So if you look ever since its inception, it's always been amateur. So this is a first in the country. And I think it's not for us to sort of, stand on tables about it, but it's just for us to say, now is the time. I think women's rugby currently, they just want to take part. They don't want to take over any rugby or men rugby competition. They just want to be noticed. And if you look at the previous Rugby World Cup in New Zealand, you had 40,000 watching the final, England against the All Blacks. So for us, it's important that we sort of introduce women into the professional setup of high performance, of good nutrition, but most importantly, understanding what it is to be a full-time professional rugby player.
So now that we are in the beginning process of introducing them to this professional platform, what do you think we need to do to better package women's rugby? Not because I'm saying it currently isn't better packaged, just when I look at a different sporting code like cricket, for example, in terms of attendance, you'll always see the men's cricket is attended better than women's cricket, which doesn't mean that women aren't doing a good job. So what do we think we need to do then for the women to ensure that we also have fans flocking through like how they do when it comes to the guys? We also have sponsors, putting their hands up and assisting those women like how we do with the men. Yeah,
I think it's just simple. You just put them on an equal pedestal with the men in terms of just giving them the proper audience, the proper, I think for me, to be visible amongst the spectators. And that means when you go to Loftus, if you see a Mone Steyn, you also see a Lebi van Rensburg next to that, and then people start, growing and wanting to see more women's rugby on the field, and also just going and be spectators. But also I think it's the pathway. So the pathway also plays a very important role. We all know that there's no girls rugby at high school or primary school, but you do have YTCs, which are your youth training centers, whereby all of them or those girls interested in playing the game start there. So we start looking at them from an early age of under 16s, and then we start monitoring them through the youth weeks, which they do have in June, but also there's also a YTC under 20 competition. And then from there you have your club structures, and also you've got to give credit to the amateur side of the Bulls, where they've grown 100% of clubs for the following year, where now you will have an excess of 16 clubs that will be participating in the club amateur structure. It gives us now a better opportunity to start scouting within our own areas before we start moving around. So I think for me, we're moving in the right direction. It's taken us this long, but I think also we don't have to rush it now because we're already into the professional setup. We just have to motivate other unions to follow suit, and very soon.
Definitely, yes. So when you speak about scouting as well, I think with every single sporting code, the pipeline is very, very important. Yes. And you've just mentioned, at a platform like a high school, there isn't rugby for women. I mean, when I was in school, there also wasn't, which is a long, long time ago. Yes. Do you know if there are perhaps any talks in ensuring that happens? Because I remember when I was in school, it wasn't that we were not interested, it just was not available to us.
Yeah, I think what we'll do with our, with our women is that we'll start introducing them to other courses, coaching courses, so that we can start sending there. So we're not going to wait for the education department to start sort of being involved. We're going to start making sure we have relationships, obviously, with them, school governing bodies, and introduce and sell our package to them on how we want to fast track the game to them. And what's good for us is in 2025, there's a World Cup happening in England. So in terms of that, if you look, it's 2 years years and 9 months from now. So that's quite important, that we don't have enough time. We've got to start also selling the game within us, but also I think having it on TV for viewers to start seeing, and also identifying the faces when they see the ladies when they qualify for 2025 in England. They will start saying, this is where they come from. I mean, we have players that have come from Limpopo, you know, the most impoverished area. And I mean, if you look, and they are Bulls players, and that would be Wrightsome Curry. She plays SA7s. She's also playing SA15s. So she's got a good story to tell of how she started. And it was through the youth training centers where she came through. She was scouted and played right through all the divisional sides of the Bulls amateur side. So now she's part of us. But I think also what's important from our side is just to make sure that there's an alignment. Now, the alignment sort of just makes things much easier in terms of player pathways. And that means in terms from a coaching side, from an administration side, everyone is aligned and everyone knows from the high performance, my office, what we want and how we're going to deal with getting where we want to go.
So have you had a chance to spend some time, have a conversation with all of these women? Because I understand that some of them are currently still tied up elsewhere, so they aren't, you know, fully part of the Bulls Daisies team as yet. Have you had an opportunity, though, to chat with them? How are they feeling, by the way? I mean, this is a big thing to be given as a woman. For me, this is a big thing. It's a big thing to be provided with a professional rugby contract. And I mean, they're doing this because this is their passion. So how are they feeling?
Some of them are already in camp. We'll make those announcements soon. I mean, next week we'll start announcing the coaches. I mean, that's also another a tick box we're going to have. I think people must look forward to Tuesday when we announce the coaching team for the ladies. But also I think what's important is we're making sure that we're keeping them in a bubble where they actually are concentrating on preparation for the friendlies as well as for the competition, which is good for us. But they are there, we're having those engagement, and I think they're starting to get to know one another, and I think we're in a good space. Yes, there are some that will be joining us very soon, and those we look forward to welcoming them up in the capital up north, and also just to make sure that they make themselves feel at home, and also just understand the ethos of the Bulls Daisies that we currently have and we're building. But already the train has started moving.
So I must ask you while we have you here, and we are about to run out of time. So Spunkosi, we hear he's back, he's training. About a month ago, because it was in December that we heard he had gone missing for about 3 weeks, and then he was found at his father's home, and then he surfaced saying he's going through some mental health issues, and now we understand that he is back, he's back training, and he hopefully will be playing, I think the weekend of the 18th of February in the United Rugby Championship. So do you know how he's doing? How are his spirits? Is he feeling better mentally? You know, we've seen in other sporting codes as well, tennis, Naomi Osaka, who has talked about her issues. Is he doing well?
I haven't seen him, to be quite honest. I've followed him on his social platforms, and in terms of, where he is now. I think every sports person, we all go through some turbulent times in our lifetime, and the only thing that we can do is just support him, whatever he's been going through. And I think, it would be just good to see him back on the field. I think that's where he belongs, and also just show us his God-given talent. He's won a World Cup when he was 23 years. And I think people have to take note of that as well, that we've got to give the young man the opportunity. I myself have it's not been rosy when I was a player myself, so we all go through that, and one can just wish him all the best as he comes back. I haven't seen him because I've just been focusing on my project, but I wish him well, and I wish the URC team also well, leading us to the Stormers game.
We wish him well too, and we also wish the Bulls Daisies well. I'm looking forward to hearing on Tuesday who all the players are and who's going to be part of the technical team. But as you've heard me say more than once today, this is huge for me as a woman. So we are very, very excited, and well done to all of them. Before we go, we do have to really go. There was a match yesterday that you told me that you don't know about between Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns. So who were you supporting? Who were you supporting in that match, sir?
Which game was it?
It was Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns.
Sundowns.
You're supporting Sundowns?
Yes,
it doesn't sound like it. I hope so.
Sundowns fan.
Thank you so much for thank you so much for your time. That was Thando Manana, Bulls high performance women's rugby manager, and as you heard there, 35 professional rugby contracts provided to all the ladies at the Bulls Daisies. We'll have more sport